pensions of EU staff. Nick Watt has been investigating.
Time is running out for both sides. In just over a month's time, Theresa May hopes to trigger the start of the Brexit negotiations. The UK is focused on paving the way for a bright future based on new trading relations across the globe. But here in the heart of the EU, they are putting the finishing touches to the list of demands that will concentrate on a much more immediate challenge. When the talks are underway here in Brussels, it will soon become apparent that they are a divorce negotiation. And as any lawyer can tell you, one of the first items on the table in any divorce is alimony.
My impression of the British position is they enter a football club, they say, well, what we really want to do is play cricket, and by the way, we don't want to pay because we already invested in our cricket equipment, and when we go, we would like to take away some pieces of the clubhouse, and this is impossible.
The EU is planning to play hardball with an early focus on demands for a substantial exit fee, though there are tentative signs of a mellowing. Newsnight understands that a figure of just over €34 billion is doing the rounds in Brussels, somewhat lower than the 60 billion floated last year. The new amount has been reached by examining the UK's roughly 12% share of the EU's assets and liabilities, with some signs of flexibility. The UK's share of the EU's total budget shortfall of around 200 to 250 billion euros works out at between 24 to 30 billion euros. And the UK's share of the EU's pension bill of 50 to 60 billion euros is between 6 to 7 billion euros. The UK will be expected to pay at least a third of its commitments under the EU's current budget up to December 2020, 21 months after the planned Brexit date. That works out at around 10 billion euros. There are also the EU's assets of 153 billion euros. The UK will say its 18 billion share should be deducted from the liabilities. Some in the EU say their figures already take account of this. Definitive figures are notoriously difficult to pin down. The new exit bill is slightly lower because the EU acknowledges that the UK should not have to fund those parts of the budget up to 2020 where spending has not yet been committed.
The overall figure that's being bandied around in Brussels is something like 60 billion euros. Now that assumes that we are fully liable for the 7-year period, and we might be able to escape some of that. But that is the top figure. Negotiation might bring that down, but it's not going to be a small bill. I would have difficulty getting it down to any lower than 40.
Newsnight understands that the exit bill and the rights of EU citizens in the UK will be the first items tabled by Brussels. One EU source told me not a single member state is going to pay 1 cent to help the UK leave the EU. A leading MEP from Germany is hoping for a benign settlement.
Either we keep everything in the EU like it is. That would mean somebody would have to cover the difference, and that would be on the net payers side. The net payers are not very keen of the idea. My home country, Germany, being the biggest net payer, not at all. The other possibility is that UK is obliged to pay, and whether it will be the full money or with some other sort is open, and will be a matter of negotiation.
It will be very difficult to find a way of filling this gap. And 10 billion is quite a lot of money for an EU budget that is of around 130 billion. And that's why if we go to this solution of increasing revenues, it's very bad for net contributors. On the other hand, if we decide to cut spending, of course, the big losers are the net recipients and the countries that are benefiting most today of cohesion and agriculture. So it's going to be difficult because we will find the two, it's already always like this, there is a big cleavage between net contributors and net beneficiaries, but this is going to be exacerbated by Brexit, of course.
The UK is hoping that old friends in the EU will ride to its rescue. Jens Geier suggests that Germany wants to be constructive, but it too has its red lines.
What we want to achieve is a fair deal, and fair means the obligations has to be on both sides bearable. And what will definitely not happen is that the European institutions and the European government will let the UK going away with just only big advantages, paying nothing and forgetting about all the obligations they have on the continent. No way.
Britain will soon be on the route out of the EU. We can expect some hard stares across the negotiating table when the Brexit bill is presented. It looks slightly less expensive, but money could still make or break the talks.
And that is the point. Nick joins us now. Just talk us through the significance then of this, if you like, divorce settlement for Brexit.
Well, our report shows that there's something of a mixed blessing for David Davis on that sum of money. On the one hand, that €60 billion figure that was being talked about last year, well, that seems to be coming down. But €34 billion, that's the figure doing the rounds now. That is a colossal sum of money. But before David Davis can get to those talks, he's got to get that parliamentary bill triggering those negotiations onto the statute book. And tomorrow, the big day, there are 3 votes. In the first place, there's going to be a vote on the SNP's reasoned amendment. That would stop the bill in its tracks. That will fail. The next vote will be the big one. That's on the second reading, to give the bill its second reading. That will go through, and we expect there'll be around about 29 Labour rebels. And then the third and final vote of the day will be on the programme motion. How much time should the bill have to be debated? And it looks like there will be a higher number of Labour MPs voting against the government on that one. And then next week, the bill is considered at committee stage on the floor of the House of Commons. And if, as seems likely, amendments on that are not passed, then you will see Clive Lewis, the Shadow Business Secretary, resigning from the Shadow Cabinet to let him vote against the bill.
This is all in the Commons, of course, Nick. The real battle, though, I guess, will be in the Lords, won't it?
Yes, well, it's interesting. Government whips in the Lords, they're not exactly relaxed, but they're confident that peers who are strongly pro-EU will not seek to block or delay the bill. And there are 2 restraining influences on peers. In the first place, they know that if they are seen to thwart the will of the people from that referendum, that's not going to end well for them. And in the second place, any peers who haven't quite appreciated that point, well, they're being told by the government, if you block or muck around with our bill, we will hold an election with 2 key pledges. 1, we take the UK out of